I don't know if it's because it's the first official day of fall or if it's just because Mercury is in retrograde, but there is tons of drama going on around town. Let's get into it. I'm Matt Trammell, and this is Live. But first, are you repping the Central Bobcats or the Lakeview Chiefs? At Myers Boutique inside of Myers Drug, we have the shirts and sweatshirts everyone will want to wear for football season as these outside temperatures begin to cool. Show your San Angelo school pride and style. See the new Bobcats and Chiefs sweatshirt designs exclusively at MyersBoutique.com or stop at Myers Drug in the center of historic downtown San Angelo at the corner of Chadburn and Beauregard. Myers is open 9 to 6 and Saturdays 10 to 2. Myers Drug is more than a pharmacy. It's the finest gift shop anywhere. We start the show today with the latest from Lakeview High School. Earlier this morning at around 11:30 a.m., SAPD locked down the campus after a Snapchat was shared across social media. As you can see on the screen, the Snapchat alleges that a student was going to shoot up the school. A statement shared by the San Angelo Police Department confirmed that they completely cleared the campus and no threats were found. Police did not specify if anyone was arrested during this incident. While everything was going on, parents lined up outside of the school in attempts to get their children out, during which parents began getting agitated at the slow-moving process. One parent told San Angelo Live that because of this, parents began getting hostile. We interviewed that parent about his experience, and this is what he had to say.
Daughter texted me and said that there was a social media threat. There was going to be a school shooting. So I asked her, was anybody shooting? She said no, there was a threat, and they are letting parents come and pick their kids up. So I came up here to pick up her from school, and there was an extremely long line outside, and we just was sitting just waiting to get her. I was texting her, so she was safe.
So you knew?
Yes, I knew she was safe.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the police department was here, and they had cops on the inside of the school and the outside. So that was great. So the process was, at first, was you have to wait in the line to check your kid out, right? Then after that, they changed the process where they was going to let kids out at a small groups, okay? And then I guess after that, a lot of other parents was getting upset and wanted their kid out, so I'm guessing they just let all the kids out, okay? But I mean, we as people have to understand that there's our processes, and we have to abide by those processes for our safety of our kids, you know what I mean? So we just have to be humble. In a time like this, we have to come together as a community to help our children, not bickering, howling, cussing at the cops and all that stuff. We gotta keep it away and see can we help. We want to be a solution to the problem, not add to the problem. And I think once our community and the world get that, then we all will be a better place to stay. Well, we always tell our kids, you always have to know your situation. Have situation awareness, right? So you gotta be able to watch people body language as well and pay attention, right? What a lot of kids do, and my kids do, they walk on their cell phones. You're not gonna be able to pay attention. Pay attention to your surroundings, know where you at, and know what's going on at all times, okay? I think that's the biggest part of it, is just knowing what's going on. And then if you see something, say something, period, right? And that matter if you see something at school, if you see something on social media, just always see something, say something, pay attention to your surroundings, and you see parents honking the horn now. I mean, it's crazy out here, but that's just what we tell our kids, you know, so. And everything worked out fine.
And Lakeview wasn't the only school that had a threat roll through their campus. Another social media post that surfaced yesterday claimed that Miles High School would be shot up at 2 p.m. But before anyone could get to school, the Reynolds County Sheriff's Office had already acted on the matter. It is unclear if anyone, just like in Lakeview, was arrested during their investigation, but the Reynolds County Sheriff did confirm with us that there is no danger to MHS. For more on these school threats, check out the articles only on SanangeloLive.com. Yesterday, we told you about a 97-year-old man who had his bike stolen on the east side of San Angelo. While the search for the bike was on, the man's family had already bought him a new one. Well, late last night at about 9:30, San Angelo Police Chief Frank Carter confirmed that the man's bike had been found. It is unclear, although we've reached out to the SAPD, if anyone has been arrested in connection with the theft. Well, you'll never guess who's back in court today. The infamous cattle rustler and apparently crooked businessman Dusty Thompson was in court this week where he lost a civil lawsuit filed by the owner of a local body shop. Apparently Thompson, who is a convicted felon for cattle rustling, conveniently kept parts and vehicles from the owner tucked away at Dusty's Southern Industrial Engines and wouldn't hand them over. The 12-person jury returned a unanimous verdict. Dusty lost and has to pay up. Steve Baxter, the plaintiff, said he'll probably never see a dime of the judgment awarded to him, but he decided to continue with the lawsuit because he views Dusty as a bully who only screws over other business owners. And finally, Texas Lieutenant Governor was in town today to talk about his re-election campaign at the Concho Valley Republican Women. During Dan Patrick's speech, he talked about a number of things, including the radical left. Let's watch.
Because the Democrats are no longer the Democrat Party. They're a leftist, socialist, Marxist organization. They have pretty much run out all the body Democrats. There's a few in the Senate left. There's a few in the House in Texas. But all over the country, the AOC crowd, they just swept them all out in primaries everywhere.
Patrick is claiming in this clip that the extreme left is pushing left-leaning people onto our team. And if you want to know why, here's the latest from the left's mascot, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Take a look at it. And it's not just Japan and South Korea, but there are quite a few countries that are really struggling because young people, because under the burdens of capitalism and living under a society that's increasingly concentrating wealth among the rich, we're not having kids, or we're not having kids at the same rate. And we actually need immigrant populations to help balance things out. We can't continue to fund Social Security, Medicare, all of this stuff without immigrants. And it's always been that way. Don't act like this is some new trend or anything like that.
Well, tomorrow night will be one for the books. Your Lakeview Chiefs will be going to my old stomping grounds to take on the Levelland Lobos. Of course, I'm rocking with the Lobos, but our other Cover 1 analyst, James Bellini, is going for the Chiefs. For his take, here's James.
Yesterday, we stuck to San Angelo and talked about the Bobcats, and today we're going to do the same thing and discuss the Lakeview Chiefs possibly going 4-1 this season. Last week, the Chiefs played Lubbock on Thursday and beat the Westerners 35-21. Ian Cortez and Ricky Ramirez put on a show with a combined 205 yards and 3 touchdowns. The Chiefs' defense also came up with another interception. It gives them 8 on the year so far, and Michael Duran has 4 of them. Lakeview's offense seems to have gotten a little kick from Asias Salazar at quarterback, and even though the Chiefs have a good 1-2 punch with Ramirez and Cortez, Derek Taylor, Devastian Manley, and Adrian Torres have been getting it done at receiver. On the other side of things, the Lobos are having a difficult season and are currently winless. Running back Marco Goyen has 445 yards and 4 touchdowns so far, but Levelland stats are incomplete on max preps. Look, all the Chiefs need to do is continue to run the ball, and do not underestimate the Lobos. Don't let this be a trap game. Do what you do and bring home the win. If you can't make it to Levelland, tune in to Cover 1 on Friday at about 4, 8, and 10 o'clock for updates, scores, coverage, analysis, and breakdowns of all the high school football action only on SanangeloLive.com.
When it comes to unique pieces you can't find anywhere else, Kano's Diamonds and Coins is your one-stop shop. With over 24 years in the diamond and coin industry, Kano's Diamonds and Coins is West Texas's choice for diamonds, jewelry, coins, silver, and gold. Owner Bill Cano stands by his work and offers free consultations, including estate jewelry. Don't just trust anyone with your valuables. Come see the staff at Cano's at 1016 West Beauregard in San Angelo.
Well, welcome back. I'm Joe Hyde. We have a little special treat for you today. A lot of times you see us write things on San Angelo Live, and you think we're just these unknown people. And so I decided Yantis Green, who's our editor-in-chief, and myself would get on here, and we'd talk about what we like to talk about, not about Lakeview High School, but about Texas politics.
We do talk a lot about Texas politics.
That's right. So, but before we get to the Texas part of it, I mean, obviously Texas is part of the United States of America.
Right
and
now,
we have our own August Pfluger up there in Congress who represents this area, Midland, Odessa, Llano, that area. He is really chomping at the bit, hoping that he can have more Republicans in the U.S. Congress, both the Senate side and the House of Representatives side, so he could pass some of his laws. Because right now his bills are just getting thrown into the circular filing cabinet over the trash can.
He is in the minority party in Washington, D.C., and he would like to see that change.
He wants to see it change. So let's just generally, what do you think about the U.S. House of Representatives nationwide? Do you think it's going to flip Republican?
I think the House probably will, this being a midterm election. I think that there's enough momentum out there, and I don't see that big an issue of the House. But the Senate, I'm not convinced the Senate is going to flip during this election.
Well, of course, the Senate is kind of sitting on about three races, I think. One is in Pennsylvania, where you have this Fetterman guy who had a stroke and can't really, he's like Biden. He can't really do anything, right?
Right. And, of course,
but he's running against Dr.
He's
Oz.
running against Dr. Oz. That's one of those three that we're watching, and it's going to, all those races across the country, turnout's going to be the key.
Yeah, you think turnout of ballots.
Can the Democrats get their folks to cast a ballot, or can the Republicans show up in greater numbers in those three races to flip the Senate?
Right.
It's a toss-up right now.
And the other one down there in Georgia, you have Herschel Walker, the football
Herschel
star,
Walker,
going up against Warnock. And they got in there right after the 2020 election loss. Trump was throwing a temper tantrum, and the Democrats were able to, some Republicans say, steal another election.
Well, and there's a lot of money being pumped into those states and into those races. So it's going to depend on turnout and who's excited when we get to early voting in about a month.
Yeah, so early voting, it's going to start some of these states like in weeks.
Yeah, it varies state to state, but in Texas, it's the 24th of October.
24th of October, and the election's on number 8. All right, so there's two big races that impact Tom Green County and San Angelo.
Okay.
And the first one, I guess we can go. Let's talk about the one that everyone's talking about. That's Beto O'Rourke. He's the Democrat running against incumbent Republican Greg Abbott. The polls were between 5% and 7%. I think the last one is 5%, with Abbott having just a 5% edge. And the thing about Beto that a lot of people are discounting is this guy has a lot of energy at his rallies. When he came to San Angelo, he's come here, I think, 3 times already during his campaign. Every time it's a big crowd. They're enthusiastic. It's like someone finally comes and gets me, So what do you think of Beto as a campaigner?
Well, strictly as a politician, he's working on his third strike. Again, he lost to Ted Cruz, and he also lost, never even gained much traction when he was running for president.
Right.
He is a charismatic young man.
He's not young anymore. He's in his mid-40s.
Well,
for
relatively speaking.
You're older, Dirt.
That's right. I'm old, so I can call him a young man. I do think he's got a sort of a cult following, and he's going to have that base of Democrats vote for him. I don't think that he understands the juggernaut that is behind Greg Abbott, and I think that he is going to do well in the urban areas in the Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, and Houston, and El Paso. He'll probably carry those counties.
Well, the question is, will that be so big that what they call the Magnificent Seven here in Texas, which is San Angelo, Abilene, Midland, Odessa, Amarillo, Lubbock, Wichita Falls, we are the ones right now that are, as the rings around these urban areas turn from red to purple to blue, like Williamson County up north in Travis County, is probably all Democrat now.
Yeah.
So are there going to be enough votes out here?
Well, and that's why you see Beto O'Rourke here and why you see Greg Abbott here. He was here in August at the West Texas Legislative Summit, and Dan Patrick was here today. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But they're scrambling for every vote they can get, and West Texas is where those votes are. Again, it depends, and there's more on the ballot than just one race, and this will be an issue-driven race.
Mm-hmm. You think it's issue-driven or it's personalities? Come on.
No, it's going to be issue-driven.
Beto's like the cult of personality.
And that's fine and good, but people vote with their pocketbooks.
Okay.
And right now,
we're going broke right now.
The albatross around Beto's neck is Joe Biden.
Right.
And the inflation, it's nice to look at numbers, and you can make numbers say anything, but when I don't have as much money at the end of the month that I had 2 years ago.
Or my 401k is worth, 70% of what it was at the beginning of the year.
The majority of voters live from paycheck to paycheck, and the cost of gas, gas is going down, but it is not where it was in 2020. And the groceries, you can't discount the price of groceries, the price of rent, the price of gas.
Well, I think on the gas price, I know we're right around $3 a gallon here in San Angelo.
We are,
but I think a lot of people in their mind they're thinking, well, it's going to go back up. It's not like, oh, the gas prices finally come down. Well, yeah, it's come down, and they think it's temporary, and they just want to know, when are you going to hit me with this again?
That's true. There's an uncertainty there, and because the guy in the White House had to take a drastic measure, which is selling our strategic petroleum reserves,
and beg Venezuela and Saudi Arabia,
and instead of coming to the Permian Basin, Moscow over Midland. People are afraid of that.
Right.
And that makes for an uncertain electorate. So I think that the Joe Biden economy is Beto O'Rourke's weakness.
Okay, so Beto loses is what Vienta says.
I say Beto loses. It's going to be close. It's going to be within that 5%. But at the end of the day, I see Beto walking away 0-3.
All right, so in the lieutenant governor race, and of course, before we go further with the lieutenant governor is not like really a vice president. A lieutenant governor is the head of the Texas Senate, and the Texas Senate pretty much sets the agenda for what gets what gets presented and passed every 2 years during the legislative session. So it's a very powerful position. It's probably more powerful than the governor.
It is so unique in that when it comes to passing laws, it is more powerful than the governor because the lieutenant governor decides which measures the Senate takes up, and if there's something big that the governor wants that the lieutenant governor doesn't take up, then the governor's just out of luck.
So in the race for lieutenant governor, and of course right now the incumbent, his name is Dan Patrick. He was a radio media guy out of the Houston market, 10 years ago. Yeah,
but us radio guys are pretty good politicians.
Yeah. And then he ran. The internet guys suck at politics. But anyway, so he parlayed that into becoming a politician. He ran right away for lieutenant governor, and he won. He was kind of part of the Empower Texan movement, the ultra conservatives,
right?
Financed by that big Midland oil man. What's his name? Dunn. And anyway, so what happened there? He's been the incumbent now, and he's been passed some laws, and he's been able to ruffle some feathers, and and he's running against another guy who claims he's a Republican, but he's not really. He's running as a Democrat. And I asked Mike Collier a long time ago, how can you claim to be a Democrat. Do you know what kind of baggage you come with now? Yeah. And he completely dismisses, like it's no big deal.
Right.
Like the AOC, like, when Matt Trammell's running AOC videos, with her talking about the reason why we need illegal immigration is because capitalism failed and no one's procreating.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, Mike Collier has challenged Dan Patrick twice. He lost by 4 points in 2018. Mm-hmm. This is his second try at it. He's been in this office. He's been in our studios. We've interviewed him. I interviewed him. But luckily, not luckily, but surprisingly, he is polling within 5 points right now.
He is, and Mike Collier is a former Republican, and
from the Woodlands,
and he does have connections. He is well spoken. He's a smart guy, but he's got a couple of weaknesses. He is running as a Democrat, and he is running on. And this is, I think, the biggest ding that Mr. Collier has is fix the damn grid. He's hitched his wagon.
Is that why you keep writing about the grid?
Absolutely.
Really? So you're shilling for Dan Patrick?
I am not. Here's the fact: the grid has not failed in Texas since the legislature met,
and it
2
was
years
hot.
ago.
It was hot this summer. I mean, really hot. It was
hot.
Consistently hot. Remember, we went about 70 days over 100 degrees,
and we had record power use, record electricity need, and the grid held. Mm-hmm. And what Mike Collier is running on is the fact that the grid is broken.
Right.
And it hasn't failed again since the legislature acted, and that is an Achilles heel.
The criticism of how is primarily Governor Abbott ran the grid is he turned up these natural gas generators and left them offline, kind of on standby all summer. And they said that was a waste of resources. I'd say that's a smart use of resources. I mean, they're either going to be sitting there idle, or you're going to run them and you're going to spend a little bit of money on fuel and not kills people. Which one do you want to, how do you want to run this? I mean, what would Mike Collier do differently? That's the question.
That's exactly it. And he hasn't articulated anything, but we're going to require natural gas companies to spend more money on stuff that people don't see. And
like what?
When the insulating and winterizing
people's houses?
No, power plants.
Oh, the power plants, okay.
And the natural gas power plants. Mm-hmm. And the problem with that is people, again, vote by their pocketbook. When Winter Storm Uri hit, and I was sitting at home in my house, and I had no electricity.
And Winter Storm Uri that's what happened in February 2021. Remember when your water went out because all the pipes froze? That was it. Even those on the upper plain.
When I was sitting there and I didn't have any electricity, I wanted electricity. Mm-hmm. Natural gas saved me because I have natural gas in my fireplace.
Right.
What happens is voters want that electricity on. And the electricity has been on since the legislature met at the last session.
So Collier doesn't have an argument.
Collier's argument is, he's saying fix something that the legislature's already fixed in the minds of most voters.
Right. All right. Well, that concludes our talk about, I guess, Texas politics. By the way, you were at the Dan Patrick speech. He came here. He was at lunchtime today.
Yes.
Give me your insights of how he sounded and what he talked about.
Dan Patrick is concerned enough about this election and about how close it is that he is out here and he's taking it seriously, and he understands that there are some issue-oriented voters out there, and abortion is the issue.
Abortion is the issue. So explain. We have banned abortion. Pretty much, the heartbeat bill bans abortion.
Yes, it bans abortion.
There's hardly any exceptions.
There are almost no exceptions, and when the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, that threw a lot of Texas moms into a tizzy.
So to explain why that happened was the heartbeat bill really wasn't in effect while Roe versus Wade was in effect.
Right.
So people weren't really watching real closely or considering the ramifications because there's no way the Supreme Court's going to overthrow or overturn Roe versus Wade.
And I was among those thinking that.
And so they had this heartbeat bill that was passed. I'm talking politically right now. Politically speaking, it was passed to placate the far right of the Republican Party.
Yep.
Right?
That's, yeah.
And the left guys in the Republican parties are the rhinos. They didn't speak up.
Exactly.
They just
Yeah.
let it go.
Yeah.
Roe versus Wade's going to save them. And then all of a sudden, it's kind of like the rug was pulled out from underneath those guys. And now all of a sudden, we have this what they would describe as a draconian abortion law in Texas, and Dan Patrick is at fault for passing that.
They are laying the blame on Greg Abbott and Dan Patrick, and that is an issue that is going to motivate voters to go to the polls. And Dan,
Which voters?
Is the people concerned about abortion,
So
the
basically-
access to abortion.
Basically, pro-choice Republicans, pro-choice
Not necessarily.
centrists, pro-choice.
I think you've got some Republicans who are pro-life, but what they want is that exception for the life of the mother, for incest and for rape.
So you think the vast middle of Texas wants to have those exceptions?
No, I think there's enough working moms and single moms out there that this is an issue for them, that there's not an exception in the abortion law, and it concerns their life. And some older voters who maybe have daughters, granddaughters, who might find themselves in a situation where an abortion would be the only option. And those people were motivated and are motivated and now are well funded. And
You're
of
talking
course,
about the moms against Abbott.
Moms Against Abbott, that's a real thing.
But that's a left-wing
of course it is.
AstroTurf group.
Of course it is. But they're peeling away some of those
suburban moms.
and that's enough to concern both Dan Patrick and Greg Abbott, and it should. But the purist pro-life folks are happy and are still pushing for a total ban, and the Lindsey Graham 15-week ban has sort of remotivated those voters. So we'll see what shakes out in November. Again, I think it.
So if you're pro-life and a conservative, you better vote.
That would be the message, and if you don't go vote, this election will show it.
Right. Now here locally, we have Project Destiny, which is
We do.
the city ordinance, the proposed city ordinance. It's on the ballot. If you live inside the city of San Angelo, you can vote on it to completely ban abortion.
Yes, to make San Angelo a sanctuary city, and that's been a long and hard journey for the folks who've worked on that, and it made it to the ballot in a very legal way. And for those folks who are one-issue voters, they're going to have to go down the ballot and down the ballot and down the ballot to get to those issues.
It's probably going to be the last one.
It will be the last thing on the ballot.
Of the November 8th ballot, where you're choosing your governor. So,
That's
so
right.
you can go in there, when you go vote for Beto, keep going down the bottom of the ballot and vote yes for the sanctuary city, right?
I would encourage everyone to vote the entire ballot. Absolutely, absolutely. And I've been fighting that fight for 20 years.
Right? Want people to vote for everything.
Yeah, if you've been a candidate like I have on the backside at the bottom of the ballot, then you get to where you preach that vote in every race.
Yeah, you always look at the undervotes. You're always looking at
I
the
do.
undervotes, and you're always
It matters.
complaining about them.
I am.
Yeah.
And
But you can tell which politician is the most hated. Just whoever
Look
has
at
the most amount of undervotes
most
is the most
undervotes.
hated politician.
An undervote-
And I'm sensitive to hated politicians.
I get that. I get that. An undervote is where a voter will go in and will intentionally skip a race and not cast a ballot in that race. So
But he
there's
votes in other races, or he votes in one or more other
votes
races.
in the other races, but not in that particular race, and that'll put up an undervote. Undervotes do send a message, but I think that I think voters, if you're going to take the time to go vote, that you should vote in every race.
Right. So final predictions, you're thinking Abbott's going to win?
I think Abbott will win.
You think Dan Patrick's going to pull it out?
Dan, by the skin of his teeth right now. But he's going to have to work hard. They're both going to work hard. They're both spending a lot of money. I wish they'd spend more money with us. They're going to be buying a lot of television and radio ads. And we'll see if those, though the radio and TV don't really translate into votes that well. It just gives you a little bit of name recognition.
I'm going to throw you a curveball. How about Lane Carter versus the write-in candidate Gary Jenkins?
I love Gary Jenkins, and I love his approach. It would be historic if he were to win that, but I don't see that happening. There are too many Republicans who are going to vote R. Mm-hmm. And Lane Carter is a solid candidate with solid credentials, and he doesn't have any big issues that people can vote against.
Right. I don't disagree with you on any of those three. Let's go to one we might disagree on.
Okay.
Sanctuary City for the Unborn.
I think that's going to win.
You think it's going to win?
I don't think there's a problem there at all. Not in San Angelo.
I think it's really going to be tight. I think that a political consultant explained to me, said that a woman, a conservative Republican female, mm-hmm. will put that sign in her yard in Santa Rita mm-hmm. and secretly vote against it.
There may be some of that. I think undervotes. You may see that.
Yeah.
But I still think that San Angelo is a solid pro-life city, and I think they'll vote that way.
I think on the positive side for the Sanctuary City, I have never seen, I've covered the news here for 10 years, I have never seen city council chambers so packed mm-hmm. as it was for when this group, this Project Destiny group, led by Pastor Ryan Buck at mm-hmm. Emmanuel Baptist Church, they show up, and they had a line out the door. For the trash contract, even Lee Pfluger. Remember, Lee Pfluger had the sand trap thing.
Yeah.
He was going to load sand in the middle of Santa Rita.
Right.
We have never seen that many people lined up to speak at the podium at City Hall.
That's correct, and we haven't. And I think that's absolutely right. And 99 out of 100 people who spoke are pro-life, and that's why I'm not concerned about that issue passing.
Yeah, you think it's going to pass? All right. Well, one more thing before we go. Looking into the future, into May 2023, we're going to have another election.
Right.
At least two things are going to be on the ballot. Number one is appointed versus elected police chief. Right now, we elect our police chief, and there's a movement afoot by the elites that they want to educate us, what do you call it, deplorables?
The deplorables.
The deplorables about why it is so important that we appoint a chief and not elect a chief. So appointed versus elected chief, if they put it on the ballot in May 2023, does it win? Does appointed chief win?
Absolutely not.
I don't think so either.
It is historic that we elect the police chief, and the voting public here has historically said loud and clear, above 90%, that they want that right to vote for their police chief. We are the only city in Texas that still does that, mm-hmm. so we're out of step with the way things are done elsewhere. But voters don't care. They want to elect their chief.
I think so, too. I think especially in this day and age where there's a mistrust in institutions. I mean, they don't want to give up control. And, I used to be kind of like, wishy-washy on it. I could go one way with appointed chief or elected chief, but lately, the last 6 months, I've gone hardcore elected chief. And in fact, after the summer of George Floyd riots, I think that a lot of cities in America could adopt the elected chief model and solve their law enforcement problems. And I think about it this way. Do you want an appointed chief in this environment who's been steeped deep in that woke crap at the Texas Municipal League, the TML, who is managed by a woke TML approved city manager, who has perhaps a weak city council, because it's not weak because they're weak people, it's weak because they're part-time.
Yeah.
Overlooking it. We can be railroaded with a lot of bad police chiefs, and that's 2 points of failure. Where if we have our elected police chief, at least the elected police chief has his own constituency that he can talk to, that he can lean on to make controversial decisions. That's my take on it. But the other one that's going to be on the May 2023 ballot will be perhaps a bond issue to rehabilitate renovate, I don't know, add on to the San Angelo Coliseum. And of course, the rodeo wants to do that. There's been a lot of press about that. They talked about the rodeo constantly. The price tag was pitched at $24 million initially. I'm sure with Bidenflation, it's probably up to $35-40 million now. What do you think? Pass or fail?
I believe that they're working really, really hard to find a funding mechanism for that. I think it's a beautiful project, absolutely. They've done their homework. They've spent a lot of money on those projected renovations at the Coliseum. Something needs to happen out there. My personal belief, my personal desire would be to see a Coliseum about twice that size and keep that Coliseum, but that's not the way it's going to go. So they're going to, if they have to ask for some funding from the public,
and they're raising money right now,
yes,
too.
they're raising private funds and grant money and doing a great job. So I think what small part they ask the public for, I think a lot of folks will look favorably at that at this point in time.
I think if they didn't have the appointed versus elected chief on the ballot in that May election, that it would be a shoo-in to pass the Coliseum referendum. I think because you're going to bring a whole lot of other people who aren't rodeo fans. You know, for example, the Rodeo Association is pretty good about mobilizing people who are connected to it.
Right.
And I would say their circle of people connected to the rodeo in a pretty close manner. I won't say intimate, but very close to the Rodeo Association. I think they could probably put 3,000, 3,500 votes into the voting box.
Probably, yeah.
And so now this elected versus appointed chief thing gets in there, and that kind of muddies the water a little bit.
It could, but and I've said this in our election coverage before, in that, the voters will get it right.
Right.
I trust the voters, and I think that if they see these plans and they see how much private money's going into this, and it's our rodeo. That there's a mindset out there that it's our rodeo, and I have that. I mean, I grew up when I was yay high. I was going to the San Angelo Stock Show and Rodeo. Still proud of it. Everywhere in the state, people know what San Angelo is because of that rodeo.
Right.
And I think you'll see the majority of folks, overwhelming majority of folks, will support that as long as it's a common sense approach to funding that improvement.
So elected chief stays. Coliseum passes.
Right.
Yantis Green has just called it. Your crystal ball. We're going
That's
to get
it.
back. We'll hold you accountable to it. But anyway, thank you all for joining us. This is Yantis Green. I'm Joe Hyde. We just wanted to let you know what we've been thinking about the past couple days. These are the issues
That's
we've
right.
been talking about.
These are the issues.
Yeah, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Hey folks, Todd Price from Jim Bass Ford. Have you noticed the last couple of years cars and trucks have been overpriced? Well, not anymore. At Jim Bass, we have a slew of F-150s priced around $4,000 off MSRP. And my Uncle Perk used to tell me, Todd, opportunities are never lost. Somebody takes the ones you miss. Don't y'all miss this one. Jim Bass Ford, Houston Hart and Hardin Road, or 24/7 at BassBunch.com.